today is that the UAE economy is set to grow at the fastest pace since 2011 after beating other Emirates. It's expanded by 8.4% in the first quarter of this year, exceeding those initial estimates as there was higher oil prices, there was the successful COVID-19 mitigation, and it's really set it up for its fastest annual growth since, as we said, 2011. To get more details about this, we're joined by the Head of Investment Advisory from Habib Investment Limited, Sandeep Jadwani. Thank you very much for joining us here on TSB.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and all the listeners as well.
Yeah, good to have you in here. You know, this story that comes about that the UAE is growing at the fastest pace. How is something like this measured?
So, there's a very basic methodology for this. It is based on the activities that happen within the country itself. Okay, when we speak about what activities, it's about the trade activities with different countries. It's about exporting oil, since UAE is an oil exporting nation. So what percentage of oil or what portion of oil is being exported, which means globally the markets are consuming more of oil for their production, their supply chain, and various other aspects. And apart from non-oil aspects of it, we see how much are you spending as an individual. How much are you spending more on restaurants or groceries to any of these stores here you're ordering online, and putting that together is the GDP, as we call it. Okay, and that including real estate, of course.
So a lot of countries, when inflation does grow quickly, that's when they raise interest rates to curb discretionary spending in the household, so that you're paying more for your mortgage. Is it the same process here?
It is exactly the same, and one of the better parts is that the UAE dirham is pegged to the dollar. What does it mean? It means that the currency it does not fluctuate comparison to the dollar, and everything is shadowing what the dollar does, or the dollar policies what they do. For example, the Federal Reserve in the US is going to increase interest rates, say on 21st of September this month, purely to control inflation. And avoid people from spending so much, because it's money that's chasing a short supply of products, and if the prices go up eventually, or the spending power goes up, eventually they'll consume more. To curb that consumption, and so that everyone can consume well within their means, interest rates are increased, so that people who are saving, they get higher money on their savings.
Makes sense. Right. So now, when you say that, when you start saving it, you get more out of it. It's a good way to hold on to your money. But then again, for the market, is it good to hold on to your money, or is it better to put your money in the market so that the rotation increases and we get out of what could be the inflation?
So that's a very good question, actually, and it's a matter of not finance but an art. Okay. Right. So from financially, mathematically, you or the policymakers would say, hey, let's increase interest rates, and that's about it. We stall the growth. Okay, because no one's spending, so growth would go down. So there's a finesse in taking what policy decisions are taken, and they never get it right. Not because they don't want to, but because they have to strike a balance. So they do something, then they realize they pivot very fast. Okay. Earlier this year, globally people thought that inflation is only transitory, but actually it is now permanent, because everything has gone up, oil pricing going up, which benefits oil-producing nations like the UAE, and that's something that everyone has to pivot around.
Yeah, right. Go on, Neil.
No, my question again, since you mentioned about UAE benefiting because of it being an oil-producing nation, and also because of the UAE currency is pegged to the US dollar. So how does a country peg its currency against the US dollar or with the US dollar, and why not a bunch of other countries do the same?
Very interesting, but let me put it very clearly, that a country can peg its currency to the US dollar or any other currency, or a basket of currencies like Kuwait does, for example, or China. They are not pegged to the dollar, but they are a basket of currencies that they value themselves to. Okay, but your specific question, why not all countries? It is, if they peg it to the US dollar, which means they have to be at equal stance or equal give and take relation with the US. Example, India. India is not pegged to the US dollar, so you would see the currency fluctuating, because the Indian policies, so to say, do not support the higher level of development that that the USA does. And in the UAE, because it's dollar, oil is traded in US dollars. So
That's
it is
right.
also a strategic way to manage relationships globally. At a country level, it could hurt people at times, like we are today, where inflation is high and interest rates are going up. But at the same time, UAE may not be a developed nation as such. Okay, so it's a balance. So money is never about only numbers or finance. It's about an art of managing it and balancing it so that everyone can sustain, and inclusive growth is there for the entire nation.
Sandeep, when you see this record growth that the UAE has experienced, does the country want that to continue? Is that essentially a good thing to grow at its current rate?
It is fantastic to grow. Again, growth is relative as well. What has UAE done? UAE leadership has been very, very proactive. They've not been reactive like the other countries, but they've been proactive in quickly maneuvering around what is needed by people. What will drive more people into the country and support its development and sustainability over long term. Not going very far away, just on the onset of COVID-19, probably UAE was the first country in the world to open up its tourism.
Right.
Okay, and said, okay, our air, our air corridor is open, flights are open, Emirates Airlines, you name it. Sorry, no brands here though, but the country really, really did awesome in terms of managing it and ensuring that we are nimble in our approach. At the same time, we are extremely cautious not to impact health of people.
But it was an interesting time because, as you said, it was very quick. I think July was maybe mid-July 2020 it opened up. But then we've seen two major events. We've seen Expo, which happened towards the end of 2021 and 2022. We're now experiencing again, that growth on the back of the need for oil from the MENA region, thanks to the Russia-Ukraine conflict. And now we're also experiencing another sugar hit, if you will, with the FIFA World Cup coming in. So does that, when it comes into the predictions over the next sort of 12, 18 months, we won't be having those once in a generation events. Does that then relate to the forecasting?
So, every industry, let's consider UAE as a company.
Sure.
Okay, so that we are more macro or micro over here than just talking macro. So any new startup starts off with a good bang. They invest in the startup, so their growth is stalled. They're reinvesting the money, and they have a hockey stick kind of a growth curve. So it starts off, dips down, and shoots back again, plateaus out, and then they are more stabler. Okay. Similarly, UAE consider UAE as a great startup story.
Yes.
Okay. 20 years back, they started up deploying money into their economy, taking advantage of the oil income. Because they were, the foresightedness was so awesome that they realized that they couldn't just depend on oil for their development. So they needed tourism. Okay, people won't come here to see oil wells. They'll come here to see, let's say, Burj Khalifa. They'll come here to see, the 7-star hotels and Abu Dhabi Grand Mosque and Yas World and you name it, right? All these things. Initially, you would look at, hey, who will go pay 300 dirhams to enter that? We better go to Disney in the US. Okay, but just imagine Middle East, the tourism sector was so integrated that the official airline over here, whether in Abu Dhabi or UAE, they actually made hubs here, and there was stopovers for 2 days, 3 days, and these were all towards the marketing activities.
Makes sense, yeah.
There was a point that we would look at ads being sponsored, hoardings, billboards outside of UAE about the airline companies here and not in UAE because they were driving people into the country.
Of course, yeah. Yeah, you see so much about the advertisements, particularly what the major airlines have done, the national carriers and so forth, in regards to their work overseas and really promoting not just the airline but the country themselves. Has been a sensational impact when it comes to marketing. The UAE, when the cabinet reviewed UAE's other competitive and economic development indicators, and it looked at many aspects before the pandemic and afterwards, I'm still amazed by the growth. The number of hotel guests climbed by 42%, not during COVID, but compared with the same period before the pandemic. I mean, for a city that's known for tourism, that is an extraordinary jump.
It is not only tourism this time. This time, what really happened was people were amazed and they had actual proof of what a country like UAE could do in terms of safeguarding their health, their
Okay.
people, the living standards, and everything else.
So it was families looking to work from home and move out here for short-term periods rather than, I understand.
And once they come here for a short-term period, they will not go back. Just the way, I mean, I'll talk about myself. When I moved here in 2006-7, I thought it's only 3 years I'll be here. Then 2009 I'll go back, because what's there? But I actually saw the Burj Khalifa build up floor by floor with a counter every time I would cross Trade Center. So it's amazing how people come here and then it becomes sticky. And that's what UAE does. It grows on you,
It does.
and not because it's hypnotizing you, but I think it is so secured compared to whatever parts of the world we come from its policy perspective, from its humanitarian perspective, from the respect that we get as humans with more than 300 nationalities living, coexisting together. Okay, it's beautiful, right?
Undoubtedly. I mean, the way it is, when talking about the same 300 nationalities and the people who live in the UAE who have stuck around beyond those first 2 years and, have made UAE their home, what does this 8.7% growth mean to them?
So 8.7% growth, there are two aspects of it. I'll talk about it from a very superb country level, and then how does it impact common man like you and me?
Right.
Okay. So the growth will attract global investors coming in who are planning to put their money somewhere and invest.
Right.
Okay. So they would now look at Middle East or GCC, and then skew down to various other GCC countries, and then they'll come to which is the best amongst the lot. Okay, they will probably have few check boxes. Is it livable? Is it sustainable? Is it dependable? Are their policy measures more futile, or they are more for long term? And UAE checks most of these boxes. Okay, because they're more welcoming, the ease of doing business, the ease of setting up visas, long term visas, the 5-year visas, and whatever sort of visas you need, it's available. So from a country level, it'll attract a lot of investments. Now, what happens to this investment? The investment will be in hospitality, hotels, in theme parks, tourism, healthcare, a major influx happening in healthcare as well. This will create jobs. This will give growth to people who are already here purely because of their experience of the cultural nature of this country, and that in turn will give more money in pockets to everyone, which means people will start spending more, even if they're saving and sending money back. Okay, but they're still consuming the basic bread, butter, and tea, right? And that's solid growth that we look at. They will use the roadways, they will cross through salics,
Obviously.
So all these things, just these small things, 4-5 dirhams per salic thing, it just adds up to
It
the
ticks over, doesn't it?
Yes.
It ticks over.
Okay.
And that's why one should invest in the Salik IPO.
Oh, well, no marketing, but sorry, nothing that I say here to be considered as an investment advice, but purely views.
But your advice is?
Salik as a company, the valuation is coming at 15 billion dirhams.
Right.
Okay, and they're raising 3 billion almost at a price of 2 dirhams, which is less than $1. Now, compared to Australia, where you come from, compared to India, where you come from, do you get anything for 2022 rupees, a government entity? The answer is no.
No, never. And here's a fun fact. Where I come from, Sydney, is the most tolled city on earth. And we've watched those toll roads not be owned by the governments. It was banking institution Macquarie Bank and their toll roading association that went in and got the contracts because the government didn't want to go into debt to have to build them because they were worried about their forecast and their debt rating and their AAA debt rating. So they offloaded them to private equity. And private equity don't look after its people. They're charging every quarter it goes up. So, yeah, it's a great opportunity to get involved.
And talking about IPOs coming in, the UAE government would be looking at divesting from at least 10 of their holdings this year. Okay. The few names over here that already got listed was DEWA, that is Dubai Water and Electricity, TCOM, one of the owners of this internet city where we are sitting right now, Ferti Global, ADNOC Drilling, Yasat Satellites, Abu Dhabi Ports. So, and the next one coming on is on education sector as well.
Yeah.
So you see how strategically they are divesting into sectors that demand a more stickiness, because utilities you need to have people here,
Obviously,
okay, to use their utility capacities, okay, where they are going green, their ESG score is ticked, so they are front runners in everything. okay, purely because of their nimble nature and their agility to take decisions.
Well, look, this has been a fascinating chat. We've actually gone over time, so we do appreciate you coming in, discussing this story about the UAE economy growing at its fastest pace since 2011. Sandeep Jadwani from Habib Investment Limited, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon on Talk 100.3.
Thank you.
Thank you.